Oh, hello! If you're watching this video, you have a Halloween gingerbread house kit from Lily's Gingerbread Lane. And I am here to help you decorate it, because if you have ever made a gingerbread house, it can turn into a complete disaster, and I am trying to help you avoid that. First, let's go over what came in your kit. I already did the hardest part for you, which is putting the house together. It is together, the roof is done. We have beautiful sugar glass windows with the scary witch. Unless you sent me a personalized picture, then you have that in the back. And then you have everything that goes with the kit. We have the candy, we have the royal icing, we have our trees, the tea lights. That's what the glowing effect that you see right now is inside of it. Our ghosts, our spider, our pumpkins, our sign, our tip for piping, and then 2 bags for piping as well. Here is the food coloring. Black food coloring might not be a common household item. I know if I didn't make gingerbread houses, I would not have this in my kitchen, so hopefully you got this ahead of time. And then there's green food coloring. We want the food coloring to match the house. If we don't, it's gonna be white icing on a black Halloween house, and that is just not gonna look good. So please go ahead and get the food coloring. Also, in your kit, you received a list of common household items. Let's go ahead and grab all of those items. It is key that we have everything ready, because once the royal icing is done, we have got to move, because it can become hard very, very quickly. So first thing on the list, go ahead and grab a fan. The royal icing can melt if it's too warm in the room, and if it begins to melt, we're gonna have a disaster on our hands, and we're trying to avoid that. So grab a fan, have the house cold, have a ceiling fan above you, something to keep the royal icing nice and cool. Next, you wanna make sure you have a mixer. I have this guy. If you don't have this type of mixer, go ahead and grab your handheld electric mixer. This will take about 5 minutes. This will take about 10 minutes. Either one works, whatever you have. Next, we have a measuring cup. I already have about 3/4 cup of water in it. We probably won't need all of that, but just in case, I have it here. Next, we have a knife. We have some Q-tips. Q-tips are gonna help just kind of clean up some of the edging with the frosting. Scissors, a large spoon, a smaller spoon, a spatula, and then we have 2 cold towels. I also have a tall glass. You want this because we're gonna put the piping bag in it to help eliminate air bubbles. I have a 1 cup measuring cup, and then just a small bowl with the spoon. And then we go into our food coloring. It's key to have the food coloring. Everything is already mixed together for you, but this is the key. This is what could cause a disaster if the royal icing does not turn out. If it's too wet, it's going to melt. If it's too hard, it's going to be very difficult to pipe through the bag, and the candy's not going to stick. So what we are looking for white, fluffy royal icing with peaks. We're looking for peaks, and when we get to the end, I'll show you what the peaks look like. So let's go ahead and add the royal icing to your mixer, a bowl, whatever you're using. Just go ahead and dump it. Just do it a little slow, because it can spread a little bit. And then we're going to add the water. I am going to add about 1/2 cup of water. It's better to have less than too much. If it's too wet, it's going to take forever to mix it. Go ahead and grab the spoon and mix it. You don't want to start the mixer without the water being mixed in here pretty good, otherwise you will have powdered sugar everywhere in your kitchen, and that's a complete disaster. I'm going to add a little more water. I definitely want it to be a real creamy consistency before it begins to thicken up. You don't want to put your speed on too high, otherwise air bubbles can easily happen. We're just going to go up 1 more speed. while the royal icing is mixing, this is when you want to get everything ready. Have the candy ready, bring everything over that you need. Go ahead and grab your kids, your grandkids, your friends, whoever you're making the gingerbread house with, because the fun is going to start soon. Okay, we are at a good stage. So, it is white, it is fluffy, and do you see the peaks? Here, I'll show you. You see the peak? It's moving. You do want it to move because you don't want it to be cement. If it's too hard, it's going to be very difficult to pipe out of the bag and it's going to harden too quickly. But you want it to be hard enough that it's going to dry and not melt all over the gingerbread house. Go ahead and grab your 1 cup measuring cup and take a hefty scoop of the icing and put it in the small bowl, the cereal bowl. We are going to set this aside for later. This is going to be for our fence, which is going to be green. So I'm gonna grab one of the cold, wet towels and place it over it so it doesn't harden, and just put that aside. Go ahead and grab the black food coloring now. We're gonna go ahead and make the icing that actually goes on the house. And you can just kind of judge this. I like it to be pretty darn black, so I'm pretty hefty with my black food coloring. And this is where you might need your spatula to kind of wipe down the edging. I am going to add more black food coloring because this is more of a dark gray, and I definitely want black. Let's go ahead and talk about the frosting. If it does become too hard, you're going to notice that in the piping bag it's very difficult to squeeze through the tube. If it is too hard, go ahead and put it back into the bowl, add a little bit of water, not a lot, and mix it. It will soften it up. Just remember you're looking for peaks that are movable. You don't want it super hard, but you want it hard enough it's not going to melt. I went ahead and almost had to add this entire tube of black food coloring because I do like it to be pretty darn black to match the actual house. We are going to fill the piping bag with the black food coloring. Place the tip in the bag and push it down to the bottom. This is where you grab your scissors. We want to cut it about 1 inch, just a few, like 1/4 of an inch above the end of the tip there. And then push it through. You just don't want to cut it too big so it slides right out because all the frosting will seep out. But this is nice and snug. You want it to look like this. So take a good hefty scoop, but not too much because you want to make sure you can fit it in the bag. Go ahead and take it down there. I'm going to add a little bit more. But you don't want to overfill it. If you overfill it, it's going to be hard to squeeze everything out. So add another scoop. Now this is important. Grab the other cold towel and place it over the black frosting to keep it nice and cool so it doesn't harden. You have your piping bag. And then we need to push all of the frosting to the end. To help alleviate the air bubbles, just kind of slowly push it to the end, not at this end, but in the middle towards the tip, and then work your way back to the thickest part of it. So let's go ahead and practice the piping. We're just going to be doing loops. It's very simple, very basic piping. Just loops that touch each other. You don't want any gap in between. We're going to practice going to the right, and then we'll practice going to the left. So that's one size. We'll also need to do larger sizes. Push out a little bit more frosting, make it a little bit thicker, a little bit wider. Then we'll practice the opposite direction. Go left. Because when we go to the edge of the house, the awning of the house, we're going to be going in the opposite direction on the right side of the house. Are you ready? It is time to start decorating the house. The fun part begins. We're gonna go ahead and start with the sides. We're gonna be covering each corner. So go ahead and grab your piping bag, and we're gonna be doing the loops just on the corner. Pretty good size though. So you can cover the entire corner, all the way up to the roof lining. Go ahead and put the piping bag in the tall glass. Again, air bubbles. We don't want air bubbles. If you haven't done your fan already, make sure you turn on a fan. Remember, this is essential. And then I am going to put the orange sixlets where we just put our frosting. So I'm just gonna go 1, 2, and 3. I'm not gonna do a 4th because that's all gonna get covered up soon when we do the edging of the house. Now we're gonna move on to the edging of the house. So we're just gonna pipe along where the grass and the house meet. Now I am going to use the candy corn. You can do whatever you want to do. This is the fun part. Go to town, do whatever you want to do. I am going to use the candy corn along the edge and kind of put it in straight where the end is sticking out. Now we'll go ahead and do the awning of the house. This is where you're going to be going to the right, and then you're going to go to the left. And this is, you want to do it fairly wide because you want to cover the whole edging. Now we're going to go ahead and do the bottom here. We're not going to add any candy to that. We're just trying to cover up the unevenness of the edging of the house. And this can be a little bit smaller. You don't want to hide the roof because it's so stinking cute. Now we're going to do the top. This is going to be thicker because you want to cover up this wideness here. So still do the loops, but just push out a little bit more. Make it wider. And then I like to do the gumdrops here. Dun, da, 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 it's coming together. We're gonna go ahead and do the path now. Now we're gonna go ahead and place the door in just to make a space. We're not going to leave it there. You want the door to be removable so you can put your tea light candles in there. But I'm just gonna place it in to make sure it has a nice snug spot. And this is where the Q-tips come in handy. Just kind of place it back in. You want to make it flat. You don't want it to be too tall so the house does fit. Let's just recheck it again. Make it snug. I pushed it all the way down. So now it has a home. And then I am going to add a second row to decorate more on my walkway. And I'm going to add black jelly beans, which my husband is eating most of the time. If you got frosting on the door and it's stuck there, go ahead and take it off because that will harden to the point where it lifts the door. And we want it to lay perfectly flat. Now we're going to go ahead and mix the green icing because we're going to do the fence in the yard. Go ahead and grab your green food coloring and your mixing spoon and the extra icing that we put aside. It should still be very manageable because of the wet towel. And then add your green icing. And again, go ahead and mix it to your liking. I'm going to do mine dark enough that it matches the grass. So I've mixed the green food coloring. Go ahead and put the towel back on because we need to cut the tip out of the black food coloring, clean it, and then put it in the other piping bag. Now we will go ahead and do the fence. So you have your green frosting. We're going to do big loops all the way around. So hopefully you have a Lazy Susan. So it's very easy to turn when you have a Lazy Susan. Now we are to the trees and all the fondant figures, which is the super fun part. Go ahead and place things before you ice it down to make sure it's in a spot that you like. I like to put them here. And then I like to put the Happy Halloween sign here, kind of in the center. So kind of place where you want to put stuff. Put your ghost down, put your pumpkin down. Your spider, we're going to go ahead and put on the roof. At least that's where I'm going to put it. I'm just going to put a very small dab because you don't want the green to show. And I'm just going to place it. We'll have it crawling up the web, so we'll have it right there. Yeah, that's cute. And then to put the trees on, just load up a good layer. Oops, where's my air bubbles? So the ghosts don't tend to lie flat, just kind of what part of the ghost actually was hitting the ground, just ice. So with the pumpkins, just go ahead and put a little dot. I like to cluster them together. And then just place them down. So if you did order the add-ons, like the last name, I like to put mine right there in front of the house. This is a good time to make sure it goes in front of the fan so it doesn't fall over. My fan is over here. We are to the end. We're to the very last part, which is my favorite part, and that is sprinkling it with a little edible sugar glitter, just to give it a little sparkle. I love the sparkle. But I do want to point out, you certainly don't have to use all the candy I provide. I try to give you plenty. You don't have to use all the pumpkins. You don't have to use the fondant figures, whatever you want to do. I like to have kind of a more is better look, so it just looks super yummy and super inviting. But let's go ahead and dust it. Turn off your fan before you dust, otherwise it's going to blow in the wind. Just have a pinch and do it slowly because you don't want a big glob of silver in one spot. And just give it a little sparkle. Go ahead and grab your tea light, turn it to the back, flip them on, and then you put it through the door sideways. Just slip it through there, turn it, place it down, and then you put your door on. And there we go! A magical Halloween gingerbread house with a scary witch. We love this. We use it as decoration. By the end of the month, I usually have it out for the whole month. By the end of the month, a lot of the candy is gone, but that's the fun in it. Enjoy! I hope you love it!